Hola, pessoal, and welcome to the PHLY Eagles podcast live from Radio Row here at the Super Bowl, presented by Factor Meal Kits. Head to factormeals.com/Eagles50 and use code Eagles50 to get 50% off. Bo Wulf, Zach Berman in the thick of things. Zach, how are you doing?
Doing great. Excuse me, doing great. Thrilled to be here. Excited for the show. It was a fun first day, and each day is going to get better. It was good catching up with different people at, you call it media night. They officially call it opening night.
Okay.
You're not an opening night guy. You're more
I'm
of a
just
media,
not I'm not going to listen to what you want me to call it and just call it that without,
Okay. So you want to call it?
I'm not a sheep, Zach.
You're definitely not a sheep. We know that. I'm
a wolf.
You are a wolf. It was good speaking with different coaches and players and executives there, and with a fun show ahead.
Fun show ahead. We're going to get you some scenes from media night, opening night, the Chiefs and Niners, some Eagles connections, some silliness. We've got lots of that to give you throughout the week. We'll give you a few of those today, including Javon Hargrave, the former Eagle. We're going to hear from Connor Orr from Sports Illustrated, who's going to join us, and maybe some other special surprises along the way. But Zach, what were your big takeaways from last night?
My big takeaways were, well, first off, it was my first time speaking to Javon since he left. So good catching up with him.
Of course, the two of you are thick as thieves.
We spoke about the
Thick as
Salisbury
biscuits.
Bojangles. Yeah, we spoke about.
But you've never had Bojangles?
Bo, I've had plenty of Bojangles. I spent 2 years covering the ACC.
Okay,
that's the official meal.
You've never had Cookout? Is this the?
I've never had Cookout. No.
Okay.
Never had Cookout. I've had a lot of Bojangles.
Bojangles is great. Bojangles fries, very underrated. I would say like top 4 fries in the game.
So
of fast food, at least.
Okay. Well, and what are the first 3?
Bojangles might be my favorite fries if you get them fresh.
Okay.
There's a great seasoning on those bad boys. Like McDonald's fries, if you get them right out the kitchen, that's good. But I'm trying to think of what other fries are good. How about you?
Chick-fil-A waffle fries are good.
Yeah, but I think there's a wider variance on the Chick-fil-A waffle fries. Sometimes you get those wet noodly ones.
True. You don't like the wet noodly ones.
No.
But no, I used to drive from Charlottesville to all the ACC outputs in North Carolina.
Sure.
And there was midway was Lynchburg, and there was a Bojangles in Lynchburg that I used to stop at.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
What's Javon's Bojangles order?
Good question. I don't have the specific order, but if they win the Super Bowl, he's going to have breaking news here. He's going to have.
Hold on. Let's tweet this out. Let's go Schefter style.
He's going to have fried chicken and I think mac and cheese. I have the exact meal that he's going to reward himself with if they win the Super Bowl. And
if he loses, he's going to have double as emotional eating.
No, because if you recall, in high school he went 0-11 one year, and he passed by Bojangles on the way home and did not have it to penalize himself for losing. He's been doing a lot of winning recently, but he hasn't had as many cheat meals after games, and he's going to have a cheat meal if they win this one.
Do you think the Eagles regret letting Javon Hargrave go?
I don't think they regret letting Javon Hargrave go. I do think they missed him to a certain extent, a really productive player. The fact that they were able to draft Jalen Carter, I think, eased that. But I do think that they could have redistributed some of the money that they spent last offseason. And, I think they probably would have rather had Javon Hargrave this past year than James Bradbury. Yeah. So
now, you will write about this on ALLCITY or on allphly.com coming up later this week. But quickly tell us, I know you asked him about clarifying those comments about comparing the two different organizations, the two different cultures.
Yeah, he spoke about that, basically saying that it was taken out of context. People just read the headline. He meant it in a good way. He was real happy last year with the way, and when I say last year, I mean the 2022 season, not the 2023 season, with the way the Eagles managed their practices. If you weren't familiar with the comments, he was on a podcast with Ark Armstead, I believe, where he basically said the Niners practices are much harder, much more intense than the Eagles practices. And he said the Niners are like the Heat and the Eagles are like the Warriors. And he said it worked out great. They were healthy. He felt good. They had a lot of success. He didn't mean it in a bad way. He just meant they were different styles. And he said, I even gave the comparison to the Heat and the Warriors. Those are two really good teams. I don't think the Eagles would or should object to being compared to the Golden State Warriors. So,
well, of course, anything that Bob Myers has touched to you is gold.
Well, Bob Myers is an awfully successful general manager. I think there's a lot of franchises that would emulate what Bob Myers and Joe Lacob and the Golden State Warriors have done.
Okay, well, let's get a little snippet of a conversation with Javon Hargrave from Super Bowl Media Night. This is not the Zach hard-hitting interview that you'll get to read about on allphly.com. This is a little bit more silliness.
Survey questions. If you could use a time machine for one day, what would you use it for?
A time machine for one day? I think I'll go back and go back to some of my best memories.
Like what? What's the first one that comes to mind?
Getting drafted.
Okay, that's a good one.
Getting drafted. I don't know, just, some family members, seeing some of the family members and friends that passed away. I think that's the big thing I want to do.
Who was your first celebrity crush as a kid?
Jennifer Lopez.
Okay, good one.
Most definitely.
Is it okay to pee sitting down?
Yeah, most definitely.
Thank you very much. All right, last one. Who would have won the fight between Dre Greenlaw and Big Dom?
That's tough. I ain't gonna say that. I ain't answering that.
I think you know the answer.
I ain't answer that. 'Cause I'm gonna get crucified either way if I answer that. So I ain't. Because
You're smart.
Whoever I say, I'm gonna get it. So I ain't answering that.
Thank you, Javon. Good luck.
I appreciate it.
A little Radio Row magic here, joined now at the table by our All-City colleague, Todd Davis. Todd, how are you?
I'm doing great. How you guys doing?
We're doing very well.
That ring is impressive, Todd.
Thank you, man. I appreciate that.
Well earned too.
What
right?
is, I mean, what's like the care of the ring? How often do you bring it out? What's your whole ring routine?
I really don't wear it too much. I keep it in like a jewelry box.
Okay.
So it's locked away. It's pretty secure. And then just like special occasions or any like kind of like charity work, that's when I bring it out.
And if you want to flex a little bit.
Yeah, I think it's a good flex.
I would say so. One thing we want to ask you about, the main thing we want to talk to you about is you had a chance when you played for the Broncos, I think 1 year, right?
Yep.
To play under Vic Fangio, who was the Eagles' new defensive coordinator. What can Eagles fans and Eagles players in that building expect with Fangio?
It's a unique experience. He's definitely a brilliant football mind. Definitely knows how to orchestrate a great defense. Not much of a talker.
Okay.
Not much of a talker. You definitely have to lead conversations when you guys are talking. But overall, I think he's a good guy. Not my favorite Broncos coach.
Okay.
But I think he was a great guy.
Who was your favorite Broncos coach?
Kubiak for sure.
Well, you got that ring.
Yeah. Can't go wrong.
So the book on Vic from a player's perspective is kind of crotchety, curmudgeon old guy. Is that does that track?
I don't know who gave that description, but it's probably somebody that was in the locker room. But maybe it's an accurate one.
No,
go ahead.
in Philly, a big knock on the roster composition is that they don't value linebackers. And you being a linebacker who played for Vic Fangio, how important is that position in his scheme?
It's very important. I think it's maybe the most important. If you look at all the success he's had throughout his coordinating career, he's had great linebackers from LeVar Bowman at San Francisco.
The Todd Davis.
He's always
Roquan Smith.
Yeah, Roquan Smith.
Todd Davis.
He always loves great, hard-hitting, fast-flowing linebackers. So I think it's maybe the most important position, in his defense.
And so what are the responsibilities in his defense for a linebacker that are different than they might be in some other schemes?
There's a lot of checks that linebackers have to make versus different formation versus different, alignments. I think you have to do a lot getting guys lined up and ready. And he's always bringing in, new plays and different schemes. Like he may come to you Saturday morning, as a linebacker, hey, I'm probably going to put this in tomorrow.
Okay.
We haven't worked it, we haven't ran it, but you got to get guys ready. You're like,
but it came to me at 4 a.m. last night.
It came to me in a vision, and I just had to run it,
Okay. Now, we sort of hear about some defensive coordinators are very static schemes, right? And this is what we do. And this scheme allows us to have answers for different things, whereas there are some who are a little bit more week-to-week game plan specific. You sort of change things around. Which end of that spectrum is Vic in your experience?
I think he's game plan specific, and I think he game plans based off of who he has in that locker room. He's not one of those guys that this is my scheme. I run it no matter who I have. I think he does a good job of mixing it up based on the personnel that he has. Any given team, really.
And the reason that's important, too, is because that scheme, if you will, has become vogue around the NFL.
Yeah.
and then it's kind of at a point now where teams know how to play against it. Is it adapting to the point that, like what Brandon Staley runs or what Carolina runs, like that's not quite the same scheme that he has anymore, that it keeps evolving?
Yeah, I think so, and I think you see he continues to have success, from team to team. Like, even though teams are adapting, even though offenses are getting much more powerful and really, mixing up run, pass, RPO, deep shots, intermediate passing game, I think he's able to adjust well. And he's been a coach for so long. I think that's a testament to how well he adapts to different offensive schemes.
What about your understanding of the things that he's going to ask from the corners and the safeties in the secondary?
He's going to ask them to play a lot of man. I think he's going to ask them to, have some tough downs. Sitting down and talking to him, he was just explaining how not every down is going to be a hard down for each player, but we just need you to win. We need you to win one or two of your tough downs for us to be a successful defense. Like, if we're playing cover two,
framing, yeah,
if we're playing cover two, the corners may have an easy down just covering the flat, but when it's man to man in the red zone and we need that one, that's when we need the corners to step up. So every person's tough down, he likes to rotate it.
That's interesting.
And then you just win one or two of your tough downs, and you'll be a pretty successful defense.
Which, from just the standpoint of how do you make it through a whole game, that's kind of nice to know that there's not you're going to take the play off, but if you that you got to bring it on a few downs. That's interesting.
Exactly.
Has that helped you as a player?
Yeah, I think it has, because not necessarily you have to take a play off, but if I'm sitting in cover 4, I know this is probably my easier down.
Right.
And playing man-to-man on Kelsey is probably my tougher down.
Right.
So I know I got to, maybe preserve some energy in cover 4, and then cover 1, I got to give it everything I got.
That's interesting.
Now, random question that has nothing to do with the scheme itself. He's on record saying he's a big Philadelphia Phillies fan and watches every game. Did he ever mention the Phillies in defensive meetings with you guys?
No, I can't say he brought them up. So I'm not saying he is or isn't, but I don't know if I've ever heard it before.
Okay. Now, any other sort of personality quirks to keep an eye out for with Vic?
No, he's a good guy. It was really funny because he's from Scranton, right?
Yep.
And I'm a big Office fan.
Me too.
Yeah. Loves The Office. So I'm thinking he's from Scranton. Of course he loves it. He watches it. And so I asked him about it. He's like, no, just not my humor. It's not really fun to me. And I was shocked, because this is one of the best shows ever made.
Which of the Office characters would you compare him to the closest?
He's a little bit of a Creed.
Yeah, I was going to say.
Just a little bit.
Okay, that's good.
Yeah.
Anything else?
No, that was great stuff. We appreciate
Todd,
it.
thank you so much.
Perfect.
Great insight.
Thank you, guys.
Appreciate it.
It's good to see you.
Yeah,
Enjoy
thanks
that
for
ring,
taking the
man.
time.
Yes,
Well
sir.
earned.
Yes, sir.
Unbelievable. I mean, what a knowledgeable colleague we have. What a coup for us. And as we continue to roll on here from Radio Row, let me tell you about Bagels & Co., because if you're back in Philly, you probably want a bagel, a Brooklyn-style bagel made in Philly. We're talking huge bagels, the biggest bagels in Philly. They've got a large variety, usually 15 to 20 different types to choose from daily. Seasonal bagels as well, and the largest cream cheese variety. You know all about it. They are an affordable brand. You get a lot of food for cheap, and in today's inflationary world, we think that's key. We've debated raising some of our prices, but they want you to know that they're an everyday brand, not some high-end place you go to splurge on the weekends. This is a blue-collar bagel, people. So, for the best Brooklyn-style bagels made right there in Philly, head to www.thebagelsandco.com/store-locator to find the closest Bagels & Co. near you.
Now, a bit of a flex here. I was proud of my steps yesterday, but steps are only one part of a healthy diet. The other part is your eating, and
the third part is sleep.
and where to go for your healthy meals. Well, Factor's delicious, ready-to-eat meals make eating better every day easy. Whatever tomorrow takes you, or I should say wherever tomorrow takes you, be ready with pre-prepared, chef-created, and chef-crafted, dietitian-approved meals delivered right to your door. You'll have over 35 different options a week to choose from, including keto, calorie, smart, vegan, and veggie, and more. And there's even more to enjoy with over 55 nutrition-packed add-ons that help make your weekly meal even more delicious. What are you waiting for? Get started today and have a feel-good week of meals ready to go. There's 2-minute meals, which fuel up fast with restaurant quality type food. You have snacks, you have smoothies. You can sign up and save. We've done the math. Factor's less expensive than takeout, and every meal is dietitian approved, and it's to be nutritious and delicious. It's the perfect solution if you're looking for fast, upscale, options done easily, and there's no prep. It's not a mess. Factor meals are 100% ready to heat and eat, so there's no prepping, cooking, or cleaning up needed. Head to factormeals.com/Eagles50 and use code Eagles50 to get 50% off. That's code Eagles50 at factorsmeal.com/Eagles50 to get 50% off. And again, we appreciate Factor Meals presenting, the Factor Meal Kits, I should say, presenting the PHLY Eagles Show here live from Super Bowl Radio Row.
And one last thing to tell you about, if you are here in Vegas, you can come hang out with all of the All-City people tomorrow night at the Overhang Bar at the Circa Resort, our good friends at Circa, from 6 to 8 p.m., 2 free drinks if you are SVP. So come join us, hang out. I know Zach's going to be pounding those drinks.
That will probably not be the case, but I'm going to enjoy spending time with all my All-City colleagues and everyone who wants to come between 6 and 8 here at Circa.
And speaking of people who know College Zach, I think it's a pleasure now to bring on Connor Orr of Sports Illustrated, a man who you've seen, Zach, from a young age, and you've risen together to the heights of the industry. How are you, Connor?
I'm good. How are you?
We're doing well.
Connor Orr from Sports Illustrated, and we didn't just go to college together. We worked together at the Star-Ledger. Connor.
What was the power dynamic?
Well, no, Connor and I were in comparable positions. He was on the Jets. I was on the Giants. He was working with Jenny Vrentas, who's now at the New York Times, formerly at Sports Illustrated. I was working with Mike Garafolo, now at NFL Network. But he and I were, I guess we can say, like the number twos on the beat. It was more like a defined structure back then.
Okay.
Like some beats are 1A. This was like a 1 and a 2 structure. And so we were able to kind of experience it, commiserate. I shouldn't say commiserate, compare notes.
I was going to say, yeah. Who had it tougher?
No, compare notes. And then Connor, since then, has become one of the preeminent football voices in America. So it's awesome to have him on.
I was thinking about this when I was walking over, and so Zach is a little bit older than me.
Okay.
And when I picked up the student newspaper for the first time at Syracuse, I was really intimidated, right? Because you get there and everybody's already on their way to becoming like Bob Costas, you know?
Yes.
So I flipped the student newspaper over to the sports section, and you see Zach's headshot, right, in the column. And this guy is already writing like, you know, Jim Murray. Like, he's super talented. And I see Berman, and I'm just like, what is this? Is this Chris Berman's nephew or something? I was like, I got no shot.
You're
like,
with me,
this is, I'm never going to be able to get my foot in the door here. So it was very. Zach was like the first. I remember that. I called my dad, and he was like, "How is it?" And I was like, "They got like Chris Berman's nephew writing for the school newspaper. This guy's phenomenal." I was like, "There's no shot. You know, we got to figure something else out. You know, let's try finance." But,
what was it? A 2-year difference? 1 year?
I think so. 2 years.
Okay.
Yeah.
I appreciate that. Funny story. I was once. This is going to sound like a flex, but it's not.
Everything's a flex when you're as as talented as you.
No, I was once in Andy Reid's office, and he made a joke. He said, "I thought you might be related to Chris," and then I kind of saw you guys. Chris Berman.
Yeah, Chris is huge.
Yeah, Chris is a big guy. Yeah. I'm not particularly big, so it's pretty. I remember that day. I remember it vividly. It was a funny joke.
That is a good joke.
Yeah.
And you got to spend some time with Andy last night.
Yes. Yeah. It was really good. It's always good seeing Andy. Always good catching up with Andy.
Connor, I was thinking about a conversation we had at the Combine a couple years ago, and I think you were out in front of this before anybody on the Eagles beat was.
I was about to ask him.
And that was after the first year of Nick Sirianni. It had not come out yet that Nick had given up play calling, and you were sort of very, you didn't want to boast about it. You're like, my understanding is that, Shane Steichen has a lot to do with the Eagles' success in the second half this year. Just want to give you credit for that. You were all over that.
Thank you.
I feel like you are like very plugged in at the coach level.
Yeah, I think everybody has their niche.
Yeah.
I started doing the list a couple of years ago.
Love the list.
As a way to find some sort of way to quantify coaches outside of this guy knows this guy or this guy runs this scheme. And so,
which unfortunately is how so much of the hiring process happens.
Yes.
Right? Yeah.
But through that, got to know a lot of people and very fortunate. But that was a very intimidating moment for me because Philadelphia beat writers are terrifying. All of you guys, like if you parachute in I don't like to go because I'm scared of all of you. And then when I said something,
intimidating.
when I said something that you all disagreed with, I was like, I was in a cold sweat because I was like,
dead on.
Is my information wrong?
Well, because you have to understand that first year, Shane on the podium was like so unimpressive. It felt like he had no idea what was going on, and meanwhile behind the scenes, he's turning the keys.
And the other part too is that Jeff Stoutland has a lot of juice in the Eagles building. So I think the assumption among the beat writers, and it was incorrect.
And he was the run game coordinator.
Was that like when you gear more toward this like run-based offense, this is Stoutland's influence, right? And because Shane's background was,
how hard is it to just press the run button?
Exactly. Yeah. But you were on top of that, and by the way, you were on top of it with your list. Like you identified Shane as a hot candidate before anyone else. He gets
not as hot as D'Amico, but
he gets the Colts job. You had Gannon on that list. He gets the Cardinals job. So you've been on top of that all along.
Tough year this year. My two top candidates were Ben Johnson and Ejiro Evero, but they both got interviews.
I mean, Ben Johnson would have gotten a job if he wanted the job.
Would have gotten a job but the thing that was amazing about Shane was I talked to Phillip Rivers and just about kind of what kind of coach he was at that time, back when we were talking about it. And he said, he's like, how I throw the ball funny? And he's like, well, Shane would, when he was calling plays or when he was designing stuff for me, he would like drop back and kind of pretend to throw like me so that he could understand that there's certain reads and there's certain things that I'm going to look at that are going to be uncomfortable uniquely for me. And I think that Shane understood with Jalen specifically that what Jalen's thing was he needed to see the defense a certain way before the snap. And if things looked right to him, then he could play with confidence. And so Shane was really good at lining all that stuff up for Jalen, right? And I think you saw what happens when you don't have that kind of that concierge service or whatever it is behind the scenes this year.
So talking to as many coaches as you do, how do you feel about the setup that is now going to be in Philadelphia, where it's a bit of a Frankenstein of people being brought in from different places? Like Fangio's getting his guys on the defensive side of the ball, but Nick is now going to be a little bit more hands-off. They're bringing in Kellen Moore, who he has never worked with before. They're adding some other guys who have been maybe Peter principled elsewhere and are coming down a level to their normal level. When you are bringing in these different parts who have no relationship with each other necessarily, how do you feel like that's going to go?
It can work out well and it cannot. I think it can work out well like it worked out the first year with Brian Dable, where he said, I don't want to hire any of my friends. I want to hire good coaches. And then 2 years into it, him and Wink Martindale are screaming at each other and the door's slamming and he's walking out of the building.
Is it possible he didn't want to hire any of his friends because he doesn't have any friends?
Also possible. And in Carolina, I gave Frank Reich a lot of credit for trying the same thing, but that was one of the most disastrous assemblages of coaches that I think we've had in recent memory. That was a disaster through and through. So you look at the situation in Philly. A couple of years ago, I wrote a coach's 5-step guide to survival. And step 3 is coming out and telling people you're going to spend more time in various meetings and not be focused on one side of the ball. So Nick's getting pretty.
It's step 3.
He went right to step 3.
He had to skip a couple steps.
I remember, I used to cover the Jets. This happened with Rex Ryan towards the end. And Rex Ryan came out one day and he said, I'm going to spend a lot of time in the offensive meeting rooms. And everyone's like, dear God, right? So I was talking to him in his office about this, and he goes, let me draw you a play. And he goes and he tries to draw a play, and he goes, hold on. I have to draw it the other, because he had never drawn a play from an offensive side, so he had to flip the paper upside down. This is what we're doing. I'm not saying Nick is like that, but this is sort of the foreign territory he's walking into, It's going to be interesting.
Now, one of Connor's best stories, I can do a whole show on Connor's great stories, but...
You're way too nice.
But you'll appreciate this, is so Steve Belichick, the father, Bill Belichick's father, wrote a book, Football Scouting Methods, okay? It's not in print anymore. You have to get it used, okay? I read it when I was in college. Connor read it.
You read that book when you were in college?
Yeah, because we got it. The Syracuse library was able to get it, I think, from Cornell's library. I don't know, but they had like a library trading system, so I was able to get that out in college. But anyways, I bring this up because Connor didn't just read the book, okay? This is what Connor did. He then went to a game, and he scouted the game using Steve Belichick's methods. An amazing idea, well executed, terrific story. I bring that up.
You're licking your lips in the stands.
I bring that up because we're talking about coaches. There were rumors, I think well-founded rumors, that the Eagles were interested in Bill Belichick had they moved on from Nick Sirianni. Now, as we know, Bill Belichick did not get a job. A, what's your read on why Belichick is not coaching in the NFL next year? And B, are the Eagles a team to look at if this goes south?
I think there has to be mutual interest between Belichick and what he sees as a window and that team and what they see as a window. And certainly the Eagles are one of those teams. You know, he identified Atlanta early on in the process. I think that Las Vegas was also on his radar, but much less so. I think Atlanta was sort of the one that he identified as the failing asset that I could come in real quick and I could flip this thing around. Philly, if that was on the table, is comparable in almost every way to Atlanta in that situation. Plus, they have a much better quarterback.
Right.
You know, and the amount of veterans there, I think he has cachet with that generation of guys, that group of guys. I think it would work, and it's the perfect safety ripcord for them to pull for a year or two, so long as Howie and everybody else doesn't mind taking a step back. Because I do think that that's a big part of what Belichick still wants. Now, would he respect them enough to kind of have some sort of mutual relationship there? I don't know, because it didn't work out in Atlanta that way.
Yeah, I mean, my sense is that Howie would not want that. I think, you saw that he wanted Nick to stay. They were calling around to help fill that coaching staff. I don't know that he would want that power dynamic with Bill. I also don't know that if things go so badly this year, then they would go to Belichick. I feel like then they'd be wanting to start fresh. This year it felt like it made sense to me more if they were going to move on from Nick, because it is a little bit more turnkey. Like what the case that I've made is that to the Eagles, to some degree, coaches are kind of fungible. The roster is king, and if you're going to just try to get the most out of the roster, it's what you've seen them do. They want to get these high floors with Vic Fangio and Kellen Moore. If you brought in Bill Belichick, you're squeezing the lemon, like squeezing the juice even more.
I don't know Belichick well. I don't know him really at all, honestly. So I should say.
I mean, you
I don't
have
know
read
Belichick.
more about him
but I
than
don't know Belichick.
most humans.
I should frame it like that. I don't know Bill Belichick. What I've heard about him, and Connor can back this up if it's true or false, is that he has a reverence for the NFC East. Like, the Giants organization still means a lot to him. His time with the Giants, he holds dear. I would imagine he has his eyes on those three NFC East situations, the Eagles, the Giants, and the Cowboys. Because I think each of those are potentially, if it goes south with any of those teams, then I think there'll be a new coach next year.
If you were to be able to talk him into pairing him with an up-and-coming offensive coordinator, which I think might be difficult. But here's the crazy thing about Belichick. If you talk to some of the...
Have you heard about Josh McDaniels?
If you talk to, like, the guys that are, coming up on in the coaching ranks, right? The whatever for lack of a better term, I hate saying hot young coaches because it sounds... I don't want to make a comment.
Ryans, he comes to mind. Yeah, he's a very attractive young man.
I mean, he would be high in my good-looking coach power rankings.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
He's number one with a bullet to me, but yeah.
But all of these coaches talk to Belichick. They know Belichick. He communicates with them. He knows them. And so why not just grab, someone from the Rams and just go to Atlanta and run this thing? And I don't know whether it's loyalty, whether it's an assimilation into a system, but he's still the best defensive coach in the NFL, and I don't think it's close. The other thing when you get talking to these coaches is they still hate playing him more than anybody else.
Yeah.
And I go back to when Mike McDaniel was lighting it on fire with Miami early on. The coach who messed it up for him and for everybody else was Belichick. And everybody started copying what he was doing, muddying to his first read, doing all this crazy stuff, and everybody else started doing that to the Dolphins after that. He was the one who figured it out. He's always the one who figures it out. He would be a great head coach, and it's mind-blowing to me that he's not in the NFL.
It is kind of wild.
Now, speaking of defensive coaches, if we can move on a bit here, is we just had Todd Davis sitting in your seat. He's with DNVR, part of the All-City Network. Super Bowl winning linebacker. He played for Vic Fangio, and he gave us this story. He's a big Office fan, and he wanted to ask Vic Fangio about The Office because he knew Vic was from Scranton. So two-part question here. One, you're from Scranton. How many people just assume you like The Office because you're from Scranton? And two, the real question here is Vic Fangio, is it going to work in Philly?
So, as a sub-answer to the first question, I'm sure that what Vic Fangio said was, I'm not from Scranton, I'm from Dunmore. Is that what he said?
He said it's not my sense of humor.
It's not his sense of humor. Yes.
Okay, so yeah, Dunmore is like, it's just it's a continuation of Scranton, but to the people there, it would be like a border of like.
It's not Jerry McNamara territory.
It's not Jerry McNamara territory. It's the next town. It's literally the next town over. But if you
they would be offended at the suggestion.
Very much so.
How dare you suggest I could possibly be a Scranton man?
If you talk to people from Dunmore and you're like, oh, you're from Scranton, that would be like, some sort of war-torn countries.
Hatfield
where
McCoys.
Yes.
Okay.
So quick aside there, the Siriannis, they're known as being from Jamestown, New York. Like, if you talk to them, they say, we're actually from West Ellicott, right? Like, you have to make that clear. Like, so it's similar to that. Yeah.
Yeah. So The Office was like an amazing gift for me because going to Syracuse, that was like right at peak Office time. Yes. And so
that was your cultural cachet.
I didn't have a lot of conversation starters. I'm not an interesting guy by any stretch of the imagination, especially at 18 or how old when we start college? 18. Yeah, 18 I really didn't have much going for me. My dad told me this. He goes, listen, what everybody does in college is they wear their Letterman's jackets around so that you can see other people from other high schools and you can be like, yo, what's up? So the first night, that's what kind of disaster I am on campus. I'm walking around Syracuse my first night, and it's hot out. It's late August, I got a high school Letterman's jacket on, and everybody's like, what is wrong with this person?
No.
So thank God for The Office because it saved me.
If you want to tell us you were a high school letterman, you can just tell us right away.
I got it at the very end by accumulating enough backup minutes. It took me till my last season of high school football to accumulate the minutes for that letter. I'm very proud of it.
What position?
Center.
Oh, good for you.
I've dropped a few LBs back then since then.
So is Vic Fangio going to work in Philly?
I think so. He has the right player set there, and he's got the right complementary coaching there. Miami was a different situation. Mike McDaniel wanted the Vic Fangio system. I don't know if he had the Vic Fangio players. I mean, the Eagles have, depending on how many people they decide to bring back, they have that hardened core, and especially if they can get some of these guys to come back or whatever they want to do. But I do think Sirianni too is a good complementary coach there. He's going to be able to feed off of what Vic is trying to get to those players, and I think tailor a message that fits that.
And so all of these years later, is there still a bit of a rivalry between the tag team, you and Jenny, against Zach and Mike?
There was never a rivalry.
Well, so I was I was an intern, and then I graduated to a clerk. And so clerk was a word in the newspaper industry back then that was we can pay him a sub-legal wage and just allow him to subsist there. So Zach was hired from the Post. So it was much a bigger deal for us to have Zach there. So Zach got a phone, and it bothered me to no end for years because I had to pay for my cell phone and Zach had a work phone. And so when I finally got a work phone, I was like, all right, I've made my way.
And now you're calling your dad and being like, guess what? I'm on the same level as Zach Berman. Remember that phone call from 10 years ago?
So you know what bothered me about Connor? And this is a compliment to Connor. But if we're doing this,
if we want to do it,
so on this scale, so I just got hired. No, I took the job because I wanted to cover the NFL and I wanted to work with Mike Garafolo, and it was great. But then a few weeks in, something happened with our Nets coverage, and the Nets beat writer was no longer there. Okay. And so Connor, they brought Connor onto the beat, to the Nets beat at the time. It was kind of like a temporary role, but all this stuff was going on with them. They had just traded Darren Williams, or they were trading.
No, they were going to trade for Carmelo Anthony.
Yeah, that's okay. Yeah, and Connor was at the epicenter of all of this. Meanwhile, I'm writing these sidebars on Matt Dodge, and I'm there thinking man, I've worked my butt off. I've gotten to this point, okay? I'm I would love, this is the biggest story in sports right now, and you have Connor there, and Ike.
And you put Connor on?
No, because I wasn't traveling with the Giants at the time. I would only do the local, so the Giants, I remember there was a weekend when the Giants were in Seattle. I remember this distinctly. And our editor, who was an amazing guy, he is an amazing guy, not was, he's an amazing guy, Drew, and he had me do the New York Marathon, okay? And
He made you run it?
No, I had to cover the New York Marathon because I didn't go to Seattle. And Connor was in like the Eppies, was doing all this great stuff on the nets. And I'm there writing about a marathon runner, and I'm like, send me to the nets right now. I would love to contribute to that. So, yeah, and Connor did an awesome job, and he does an amazing job still.
What you didn't know is that they were planning on canceling the Nets beat, and so that was like that. What they were basically doing was they were sending me out on a plank, and then they were going to cut the plank. So I took a bullet for you there. I'm glad it worked out though.
That's very funny. Now you did ask yesterday when we talked about you coming on. You wanted to give your pitch. Somebody come out and buy Sports Illustrated, something that close to my heart, but this is you. This is your vocation.
Zach was the first person I asked. I know Zach's smart financially. He's sound. I thought that he might be able to put a profile together.
I asked him what he would do if he could have a time machine for one day, and his answer was he would. What was it? He would want to go buy the
invest in Google's IPO, which is not a far-fetched answer. That's a very sensible answer. Yeah. I feel like Bo wants to go date D'Amico Ryan, so.
No, I'd rather spend some time with my dead mom.
On that,
I didn't expect it to take that.
I mean, sorry. That's my honest answer.
We're being playful. I'm sorry.
D'Amico can come too.
Yeah. I think that would be a fun pair. I will say this. I think that our what's the saying? Rumors of my death have been greatly exaggerated. Something like that. Yeah. I'm so proud of everyone who works there. Everyone's still kicking butt. Is this a show where you can say ass? Okay, yeah, we're kicking ass. Yeah. I know Zach, he doesn't work blue, so I didn't want to.
Zach is the one who works blue. He drops S-bombs all the time.
Does he really?
Yeah.
Oh, golly.
S-bombs,
all right.
come on. S-bombs, what is this, PG-13? Like, come on.
See?
So I'd say stick with us, and more good to come. We'll be around.
Well, we're excited about it. I think you are doing great work, and all the people at Sports Illustrated. So, Connor, thank you so much for taking time.
Thanks, fellas.
We really appreciate it. Now, time to give you one of my favorite interviews from Super Bowl Media Night last night. This is going to be a really insightful peek into the Georgia guys on the Eagles roster. We spent some time with Malik Herring, who played in college with Jordan Davis and Jalen Carter and Kelee Ringo and DeAndre Swift and Nakobe Dean, all these guys. And he's got these memories that I think are very insightful into the players they are today. So enjoy Malik Herring from Media Night last night.
I cover the Eagles, so I know you got a lot of Georgia boys on that team. What are your best stories from those guys?
Oh man, I got a lot of Kelee making him cry all the time as a freshman.
Okay.
In high school. I mean, not high school, but college. Nolan making him whine. Nolan, bro. He just always try to be right all the time, but it was just hey, bro, when you on the field, we be tired. We don't got to switch. How the playbook is, we can play both sides. He'll run all the way over. Coach, you won't let me go over. Bro, Nolan, stop being a baby. It's okay, just go over there.
Yeah.
Coach, but the playbook say I got to be over here. I'm all right, Nolan. But I love Nolan.
Okay.
JD. Ooh, nah. I'm gonna tell you more about this one thing about Swift.
Okay.
We had these mopeds in college.
Okay.
Everybody was riding the mopeds. Swift was doing a little donut in the middle of the little courtyard. It was a little wet.
Oh, no.
So my boy Amir Speed was recording. Swift was turning. He turned a little too hard one time, and he fell. So that was a funny moment right there.
And is it at first you're is he okay? And then you're laughing.
He was good.
Okay.
We just started laughing. It wasn't no hard fall, nothing crazy.
Okay.
It was just a little slow. Bow. It was oh.
Right.
Did nobody expect it though, because we were riding it all night. Who else? JD.
Nakobe.
Any fun memories? We all got memories.
Yeah, of course.
We got a lot of them. Bro, I just remember, I'm going to tell you one memory. I go this because it was Nolan. Trayvon Walker, Nakobe, and Trayvon Walker. They were roommates. I was going to Trey room. They stayed on the floor above me, so I pulled up to their room their freshman year. We just in here chilling. Nakobe had a book because he an engineer major.
Yeah.
He had a book studying, and he had a 45 dumbbell right here. So like I started talking to him. He read. He started talking to me and read. Then he started talking to me, reading and doing the curl. I'm like, hold on, kid. Kobe, what you doing,
It's
bro?
too much.
Yeah, like, relax, bro. He was like, no, I got to get it in. I said, you're studying?
It sounds like somebody I know.
Said, yeah, you're a dog at heart, bro.
Yeah.
He going to be different from day one. Jordan Davis. I remember this one time, man, in practice. Jordan Davis, freshman year, he was overweight. You know, Jordan big.
It's happened before, yeah.
He was overweight, so like they wouldn't let him travel to no games till he get his weight down. But he really wanted to play, and there was this one week he was buzzing his tail, and he was like 2 pounds. He was 2 pounds over, so they still didn't let him. Travel. So the next Monday, they like run the dog piss out of him, bro. And he over there like, man, forget this. I'm going home. I'm tired of this. He crying, like dead crying. I was like, JD, y'all, like, it's okay, but, bro, like, you don't gotta cry. Like, it's all right, just keep running, bro. And stop eating the crazy stuff. That was his main thing coming in as a freshman, just eat whatever.
Like what?
Canes.
Yeah, well,
I'm just say Canes.
hard to pass that up, though.
Fried chicken and large fries with sweet tea and a sweet lemonade. He used to tear the Canes up and the tacos. Okay. Street taco. He was street taco maniac, Jordan Davis.
I mean, that sounds good to me, but yeah.
Nah, he put me on taco.
Okay.
I'll bust him too.
Okay.
I'll be right with him now.
Now, how about Jalen Carter?
Man, I remember Jalen. Bro, it was a workout he did. They were doing one-on-ones. And he went down the whole line, bro. Like, not tired, but doing the same thing over and over. And everybody, the ending rep looked the same, face on the ground. I was like, what the hell? But then it was like, I was like, you coming in?
Like, you just ran the gauntlet of like.
Yeah, I'm like, you finna come in, you a sign in? He was like, nah, I'm a junior. You a junior? They were like, yeah, you gotta get that boy up out of here because you gonna take some spots. Nah, it wasn't like that, but he definitely dominated, threw people on their faces, man, and definitely didn't look like no junior in high school.
And so is it like, as you go through this process, are you hearing from all these guys? You got a big like group chat with all the dogs?
100%. We talk almost every day.
Okay.
If not every day, we're at least talking twice a week.
Okay.
At least.
And then going back, what were you making Kelee cry about?
Bruh, he be complaining, bruh. That's all he talk. He be talking like a little girl. Cause like if you get on his nerve, he be like, bruh, whatever, bruh. So like whatever you say to him, he just get to him, and he just start, bruh. So if you do it to him, he get annoyed and start whining and stuff. He's like, man, y'all just leave me alone. Y'all just not where I'm from, bro. I'm from Arizona, man. We say, you're not from Arizona, you're from Washington. Then he would get mad about that too.
And so these guys, like if they watch that, they would say like, you're doing the best Kelee Ringo impression they've ever seen. Like you're nailing it.
Oh, my mama. Yeah, Kelee. Bruh, big ass pie. That Kelee right now.
That's
100%.
Good. All right, I got a couple survey questions I'm asking everybody. If you had a time machine for one day, what would you use it for?
I've been thinking about this question all the time.
Really? You should be watching our show, man. This is all we do.
I've been wanting to go back in time just to see, like, if I would have did this, what would have been like with this.
Oh, yeah.
But then I want to go back in time in the Coliseum.
Oh, like gladiator fights.
Yeah,
that'd be
fights.
Yeah.
Like, just see it. Though.
Just to be in the crowd, yeah.
Just see, like, what was it like.
Yeah.
Because it's like the way they described it, it's just
yeah, of course. To see that would be amazing. What's the biggest what if though? You're thinking about like if I had done this or that. What's the one in your mind that's like what would have happened?
Man, this what if? Go back to 9th grade, right?
Okay.
I tore my ACL playing basketball Christmas tournament.
Okay.
Man, I'm a hooper at heart.
Are you? I was gonna say, is that your better game?
So that's my what if. Like,
okay.
If I didn't tear my ACL that year, I would have gained. What if I won the game 40 pounds? Okay. And became a DN and had to migrate just to football. Okay. You know? I would have been like 210, 205.
What were you, like a slash 3-and-D wing? What are we talking?
Like a 3.
Okay.
3, 4, 5. I can definitely do 1 and 2 though. I can control the rock.
Okay.
I can facilitate.
Okay.
I can shoot that thing. I can pad that thing.
But
I can post up.
you wouldn't have been here in the Super Bowl. But you want to know. You want to know what the basketball career would have been.
I just used to love basketball growing up. Like I wanted to be LeBron so bad, bro. Like,
Who didn't? Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay.
I
Last
just
two.
had real big hoop dreams. I want to be like hot sauce.
Love that.
I used to watch street ball all the time. Bro.
Oh, love that.
Yeah.
Favorite? Like, who's your childhood celebrity crush?
Ashanti.
Ooh, nice.
Ashanti. She was beautiful. She's still beautiful.
Yeah.
She's still gorgeous. Rihanna too.
Good answers. All
I
right.
ain't Rihanna.
Last
And
one.
Ashanti. Ooh.
Is it okay to pee sitting down?
Is it who?
Is it okay to pee sitting down?
For the women, yes. For the men, no.
Not even like middle of the night. You're tired. Nothing.
I mean, there's a lot of
good.
ways you can go around that.
Yeah, that's true.
But if that what makes you comfortable, bro,
Okay.
I'm with it.
No judgment.
Do
It's just
it.
not for you.
Yeah, just do it. Nah, I'm not gonna do it. If I can stand up, I can stand up. You know?
Okay.
I'm not gonna. I don't see the need of me going out my way to sit down.
Sure. But you're a young athletic man. Your knees aren't barking like us old guys.
Oh, my knees bark. My knees. Don't get me wrong. Now my knees bark. They bark loud.
Okay.
I just deal with it though. But I don't know about that. I still ain't go sit down and pee. If that call, you might as well just get a bottle and just roll to the side and out the bed. And
Okay.
you feel me?
Yeah, I feel you.
And keep the Germ-X too. There you go.
All right, Malik. Thank you so much. I appreciate
Thank
it. Good luck on Sunday.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. Radio Row with another All-City colleague for whom Vic Fangio is right in his wheelhouse, Zach.
But before we do that, let me tell you about my Wheelhouse. Wheelhouse is my go-to sports card gift and apparel shop in the Delaware Valley, and it should be yours too. Their motto is cards and community because love of sports unites us all. They carry all your favorite card brands like Topps Chrome Baseball and Mosaic Football, as well as t-shirts, hats, hoodies from brands like Mitchell & Ness, 47 brand junk food starter, and Shy Vintage Sports, which is my favorite one on that list. If you're looking to grade your sports card collection, Wheelhouse offers PSA grading submissions. They also host tons of different family-friendly events and birthday parties every month. You can stop in to either of their stores in Wayne or Westchester. Open 7 days a week at 11 a.m. Use code PHLY. It gets you $10 off any purchase of $25 or more in store. Also, be sure to give them a follow on Instagram like I do at Wheelhouse Cards.
All right. Adam Hogue of CHGO.
What's up, guys?
How are you?
I'm great. I love Super Bowl week. This is the best.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
So much happening.
Yeah.
Zach's in Vegas, which is his favorite thing. We talked to Todd Davis, who played for Vic Fangio.
Okay, yeah.
Now we want to talk to somebody who covered Vic Fangio, so we can get the sense of what Zach has to expect in all of these weekly press conferences. What are your tips for covering Vic?
Oh, I miss Vic. Vic was the best. He is he's dry in a way, but he's so straightforward that like most coaches say a lot without saying anything, and Vic will say less, but actually,
Drill down to the point.
Yeah, he'll be ex-player. Yeah, he just didn't play well this week. He's got to make that tackle. Just like okay, yeah, it doesn't have to be that hard. Like you could just say it, and then his players. Sometimes you got to be careful of that with the players, but I think Vic at this point has so much. He's built up so much equity in the league, respect. That and they he's the same way in the meetings from what the players would say about him too. Is he's just like, this is just how he is. He's just gonna say it how it is. He's not gonna BS anybody. He's not gonna waste everyone's time with 1,000 words when it could just be 5. And by the way, he's obviously a really good defensive coordinator too when it comes to scheming things up.
When you go back to that last defense, which was so good. If you were like building that defense from scratch, building the Vic Fangio defense from scratch, what's the first thing that you would want to put in there?
I mean, you got to have outstanding edge rushers.
Okay.
First and foremost. I mean, in Chicago, it didn't really totally click until they traded for Khalil Mack, and then Khalil Mack was unbelievable, especially in 2018 when that defense was really clicking. So, I mean, it took a few years there because Vic joined up right away in 2015. with John Fox, and they kind of had to rebuild that roster. But you could tell right away that like they were getting by because of the scheme, because of the coaching for a while without actually having too much talent. And then they eventually, they made some really good draft picks. Eddie Jackson was a great fit in that defense. Pretty much right away with the ball hawk, being able to ball hawk as a center fielder on the back end. So, and then he was great with players like Kyle Fuller, a cornerback who really got off to a rocky start, first round talent, who it took him a couple years to get going. He had a knee injury at some point, and at first it was kind of rocky with Vic, but then Vic got the most out of him, and then he ended up becoming, he might even actually ended up as a first-team All-Pro at one point. It might have been in 18. And then, Vic leaves, and then Kyle Fuller's career kind of fell off the map after that. So I think that's a good example of a specific player that Vic Fangio was able to get a lot out of and maximize.
And now, interestingly, Sean Desai saw kind of the end of that Vic Fangio defense in Chicago. I know the downfall there wasn't all on him. There was a lot going on with the Bears at the time. But now you have a situation where Vic takes over for Desai.
Yeah.
Are you expecting to see from the Eagles, like, is Fangio basically what Desai was doing on steroids? Or did you see comparable, was what Desai did in Chicago that's similar to what Fangio did in Chicago?
Yeah, I mean, what's cool about Sean Desai is, so Sean Desai started with the Bears back when Mark Trestman was still the head coach. So we're talking completely different scheme. And obviously, you guys know all about Desai's background and, the crazy stuff with the education and not really even, having that much of a football background. It's a pretty cool story. So he sort of learns as a really just basically an intern getting his foot in the door, completely different scheme, and then Vic comes around and they really hit it off. And, he decides, like, I love everything Vic's doing. I love this defense. I love this scheme. And then he sort of I feel like he had some bad luck. Like one of the mistakes we talk about in Chicago a lot is why the hell didn't they just promote Sean Desai right away when Vic Fangio left instead of going out and getting Chuck Pagano? It's like they wasted 2 years there with a really good defense when they could have just got a guy that really believed in what Fangio was doing. He could pretty much coach it the same way. It's not like Pagano was terrible, but it just seemed like a waste there. And then finally Desai gets his chance, and then everyone gets fired, and he's got to go. So I feel like Sean Desai, for as hard as he's worked, has had some really bad luck at the same time. And obviously the situation in Philly, I'm sure you guys have talked about it endlessly.
Bad luck.
Just seems like he got a raw deal. And it's kind of too bad he can't stay on that staff now because I'm sure Vic would love to have him.
It'd just be so awkward.
It would. It would. I mean, I totally understand it, but yes, to answer the original question, I mean, I do think Vic will be an upgrade. Really just more so because of experience, if anything else.
Well, let me check in on one sort of not a trade, but a roster trade that the two teams made.
Yeah.
Eagles fans sort of lament the team letting T.J. Edwards go. They were not going to sign him for that deal, but they could have extended him a year earlier, which I think would have been prudent. Instead, they get the Bears leftovers of Nicholas Morrow, who was, I mean, I don't want to pick on the guy, but just a real problem in the middle of the defense for them. How did T.J. Edwards play last year?
Yeah, huge upgrade over Nicholas Morrow. We could tell right away. What's crazy is I think he actually outperformed Tremaine Edmonds.
Wow.
And Edmonds got the big money. Right. Now, T.J. Edwards has some limitations. I mean, I'm sure you guys have talked about that even when he was in Philly, but they're able to kind of maybe hide some of the coverage limitations within the scheme. It helps having Tremaine Edmonds there because he's such a big body in the middle of the field. And they have some good, other good players in that secondary around him. So I think it's been a good fit for T.J. Edwards because they can kind of scheme to his strengths and maybe hide his weaknesses. And honestly, he was probably the best of those linebackers this year on a pretty damn good Bears defense. So. Especially when you consider they're getting more value out of T.J. Edwards than they are Tremaine Edmonds just based on the contract, because I understand Philly's situation last year. You guys had to make some tough decisions just given your salary cap situation, and I feel like the Bears it was a perfect situation. He comes back home because he's from the area, grew up a Bears fan, and it was a great landing spot for him. And it really, from the Bears' standpoint, with all the cap space they had, it was not that expensive of a deal. Right. So, I mean, it's great value.
I want to be respectful of Adam's time because he has a show over on CHGO. Real quick here, what's the read on the Bears? Are they going to be a threat in the NFC, or is this quarterback roulette going to continue?
So I think the comp for the Bears right now, or at least like sort of the goal, the track they're trying to follow, is the Lions. So they kind of been
build it slow.
They've been a year behind the Lions. This will be year 3 of the current regime, which is where the Lions were this year. The Lions had a similar season. So 2022 for the Lions was similar to what the Bears just experienced in 2023, where rocky start. I think the Lions started 1-6 that season, and then they finished really strong. Now the Bears' finish wasn't quite as linear as the Lions in 2022, and the Bears failed to do what the Lions did in Week 18 of that season, which was knock Aaron Rodgers and the Packers out of the playoffs. The Bears had the same exact opportunity with Jordan Love and the Packers this year, and they couldn't get it done, and that's a big hurdle they got to get over. But still, you could sort of still see the building blocks start to come together. So I don't know if they'll be able to get all the way to the NFC Championship game. I think that would be very ambitious to expect that. But I do think in Chicago, they believe if they can get this huge, enormous quarterback decision correct, that they should be a playoff team next year.
Well, we will let you go, but I know that people can watch the CHGO show if they want to know the answer to this. But very quickly, what is your prediction on what they do at quarterback?
I think they're going to end up drafting Caleb Williams.
Okay.
I think it's just too obvious of a situation. You've got 3 years of Justin Fields, and what I've always said, at least in Chicago, is going into this season, sometimes we've got to remind ourselves of this. Like, our conversation over the summer was, the most important, whatever happens in 2023, the most important thing is they have to have the answer on Justin Fields. And if that answer is not clear, then that is your answer.
Yeah.
Like
that's well said.
It just has to be. And so here we are, the season's over, and every single day we're talking about, well, Justin Fields this and this excuse, and a lot of the excuses are valid. He's been in a bad situation. The coaching hasn't been, exceptional on that side of the ball by any means. They're now redoing the staff. He's got to learn a whole new offense again now, third time and going into year 4. It's not good. But come on, guys, we've been around this league long enough. When you're going through this process over and over again with these quarterbacks, I think you kind of have your answer. Now, maybe in other situations, it would be more obvious to stick with Justin Fields. But the Bears have been given this gift of the number 1 overall pick with Caleb Williams staring them in the face. And I understand that you can get a big haul if you stick with Justin and you trade the pick. But you already passed on C.J. Stroud. Can you do that again? If we're talking a year from now, you still don't have your answer on Justin, and now C.J. Stroud's out there winning an MVP or something like that, and Caleb Williams is the Rookie of the Year. How do you can't have that happen?
And you also just think of it from like a GM survival standpoint.
Yeah.
Like if you stick with Fields and Caleb Williams is a superstar, you're fired. Yeah. If you go to Caleb Williams, like you still get time.
Yeah, you're not only resetting the quarterback clock, you're kind of resetting your GM clock a little bit too. You're buying yourself some time.
All right. Well, thank you so much for the insight.
All right, guys.
Appreciate it. Enjoy the show later.
Appreciate it. Always love talking to you.
Now, we talked about TJ Edwards. We spent a little bit of time last night with a different former Eagles great, and that, of course, is James Winchester. We got former Eagles great James Winchester here. First of all, congratulations.
Thank you.
What are your big memories from your time with the Eagles?
Well, that was my first opportunity to sign with an NFL team. So while I was only there for about 2.5, 3 weeks, just enough time for a cup of coffee and get to know some guys, that was a special time in my life and memory that, got to be a part of an NFL team. And got to play in a couple preseason games and got to be around the great John Dornbos and get to learn a couple things from him. And
any magic tricks?
Dave Phipp. I didn't learn how to do any of the magic tricks, but I got to watch him perform a little bit. Absolutely blew my mind. So that was neat. Donnie Jones, pretty cool deal to get to snap to him in a couple games. And yeah, I mean, it was a stair step to help me get in the league. And never knew that I would end up in Kansas City with the Chiefs. But at that point in your life, all you can hope for is an opportunity, and they gave me an opportunity.
Who are some of the other guys you remember from those 2.5 to 3 weeks?
Oh man, well Lane Johnson's a good buddy of mine. Went to college at Oklahoma with him. So obviously Lane. We actually had Sam Ancho was actually playing at the time. No, Emmanuel Ancho. Yeah, it was Emmanuel was playing there. Jordan Poyer.
Yeah.
Jordan Poyer was actually in Philadelphia at the time. I'm sure there's others. Obviously, I looked up to the specialists, so Donnie Jones and John Dornbos were two guys that really stuck out to me. but yeah, I mean, it was a great time to be there, and it was a great opportunity for me.
And what's your best Lane story from college?
Lane story? I have too many to tell about Big Lane. I'll keep the majority of them to myself, but Big Lane is the man. He's obviously he's proven that, and to be a perennial Pro Bowler, and what an incredible talent and incredible human being he is. And super proud of him from afar. And I'd love to be playing with Big Lane, but I'm so proud of him. And he continues to prove his value to the team and that he is the greatest to do it at his position. So super proud of Big Lane, and I was grateful for my time in Philadelphia.
All right, got a couple survey questions here that I'm asking everybody. If you had a time machine, but you could only use it for one day, what would you use it for?
One day. That's a good question. I'd probably go back to when my parents were my age. Why not?
Yeah.
See what your parents are up to, what they were like at that age, and we don't have that opportunity to go see our parents when they were 15, 20 years old. So I'd probably do that. Probably go see my mom and dad.
I like that one. Next one, celebrity. Like, who was your first celebrity crush?
Ooh, celebrity crush. That's a good one. I don't know. None are really coming to mind. I know I have some, but can't think of one.
Okay. Who is your least favorite Philadelphia Eagle?
Least favorite. I wasn't there long enough to really have any least favorites. I was just grateful to be a part of them.
All right. Last one. Do you ever pee sitting down?
I think everybody does. Yeah. I mean,
Thank
it's just
you.
part of it. I'm not ashamed.
Yeah. This is a long-running argument with my partner and
I got kids. So sometimes you just got to take a break and just get away from the kids.
Exactly. You need a
There you
break.
go.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
Typical father answer.
Yeah. Exactly.
There you go.
Back on the PHLY Eagles podcast, presented by Factor Meal Kits. Head to factormeals.com/Eagles50 and use code Eagles50 to get 50% off. Zach, are you working on your Portuguese?
I would like to learn my Portuguese if I'm in Brazil this fall. I want to be able to converse with the locals, right? And so, yeah, I need to spend some time learning Portuguese this summer.
Okay, well, let's talk about it. We talked a little bit about it on sort of a quick hit newser that went on the YouTube page yesterday, but we haven't talked about it on the show. The news coming down from Roger Goodell's press conference, which you were not invited to, as we talked about.
Rubbing it in, yeah.
What do you make of? Well, let's talk Roger first.
Okay.
I mean, how garbanzo beans is that?
Yeah, I disagree with it. For those who are not familiar with this, Roger Goodell has an annual press conference at the Super Bowl. It's typically open to all credentialed media members.
Famously got huffy because his league employee, Jim Trotter, asked some difficult questions.
It's typically later in the week. This time it was Monday, like hours before media night, which takes up most of the headlines anyways, right? So it's kind of buried as it is, number one. And then it was invitation only.
We're going to take questions from the nasty news media.
So, I disagree with, I think that
it's ridiculous.
In the scheme of things, I don't know if fans care so much about, like, who's asking questions and who's not.
That's what he's banking on.
But I think, yeah, exactly. But I do think that...
So let's keep it in the ether.
If you're commissioner of the league, you should be able to take questions.
It's not like he's like it's not like he's got a weekly news conference. Like, this is the one time all year he gets asked some difficult questions. Give me a break.
Yeah, to me it's part of the gig, right? And if there's something you don't want to talk about, then
go cry in your $1 billion house.
Well, no, it's just part of the gig. It comes with the territory. If you want to be commissioner of the NFL, I think you should be able to answer questions about the league, both the questions you want to answer and the questions you don't want to answer. And
ridiculous.
I think it's almost like a form of censorship, for lack of a better term. So
at the same time, are you disappointed that you didn't make the list?
I'm disappointed that I'm not disappointed.
Is this going to make you anti-Goodell now?
Oh, I'm not pro or anti-Goodell. I'm a reporter. I'm just in the, But I'll say, in my current capacity, the Goodell press conference isn't as valuable to my cover.
It would be kind of funny if he did give you the invite on this bad boy. What would you have asked him?
Yeah, imagine
do you pee sitting down, Roger?
Like you're paying a big Fangio, right? No. That's my point, is that there are a lot of people who cover the league at large, or there are times when their team is in the spotlight. I was once actually in I don't like to make this like sharing stories, but I was in a small conference room with Goodell, and I asked a question about Deshaun Jackson. this was in the 2014 offseason when the Eagles cut Goodell, and there was a conference up in New York, like the Associated Press sports editors and like reporters could go, and I was there on behalf of the Philadelphia Inquirer. I have to ask a relevant question, so I asked something about like the league's involvement in the Deshaun cut, like if they checked, because there had been a report that the team checked with the league or cleared this by the league, because there was all types of NFLPA there stuff. And I do recall that was a little messier. Like after the fact, I was taking calls. Like I had to get some clarifications about what that answer was. So in any event, I do recall that.
Okay, but some Eagles news did break.
Yeah. So yes, the Eagles are in Brazil next year to open the season, September 6th, Friday night, and it's a big deal for the Eagles. Now, I just want to clear one thing up at the top, because when this news came out, one sentiment that I heard is, this is the league screwing the Eagles, taking away a home game. No, not at all. And the reason I'm telling you that is because when the schedule expanded in 2021 to 17 games, one of the rules was that every 8 years, a team must give up a home game to play internationally. The Eagles had not done that. They had not given up a home game yet. And part of that, I believe, is their agreement with the city is that they have to have 8 regular season games in Lincoln Financial Field. So now that there's 9 games, they're able to play internationally, or they're able to host internationally, and they're going to have to do this once every 8 years. So they're going to have to do this again by, 2032 at this point, right? And they'll be on the road. They'll be a road team internationally some point before that, I imagine, because the league's going to, I believe, 10 international scheduled games in the 2025 season. So anyways, this is a big deal for the Eagles, because this is the
people who might get screwed potentially are the fans if they get charged for a home game in their season ticket package deals, You would imagine that they would only be charged for 8 plus the preseason game, but who knows how that works
I would be
out.
surprised if they charge you for an extra game.
I would not be surprised if people are trying to make extra money.
Okay. So this is the first game in South America. The Eagles are picked to host it. I think that's a big deal. Now, I had thought initially, I'm like, week 1's a good time to have this, because you have 2 weeks off before the game, right? Your last preseason game is Thursday, 2 weeks before.
Right. You're not going to coming off of a short week or anything
exactly.
like that. Yeah.
And then it's a Friday game, so you get back Saturday, and you have time before that next game. So I was like, I like week 1. And then I'm thinking about this logistically, and I'm curious your thoughts here. They're not going to have the roster cut down to 53.
Yeah, I think about the travel logistics.
Yeah.
It's going to be such a huge headache for the organization.
Because I just saw, actually, when I looked this up yesterday, you need to get a travel visa to go to Brazil. Going to Brazil is not like it's not even like going to London, right? It's more than having a passport. You need to apply for a visa and all that. So I'm not sure who. I'm not sure how they're going to figure that out with who's going to be on their roster.
Right, because they have to do it ahead of time. They're going to be 90 guys on the roster, yeah.
Exactly. So I'm curious about that. Now, as far as opponents.
Well, I'm also curious about, first game in South America. Presumably the league is going to want them there to do some promotion and stuff like that. So, how early are they going to have to get there?
Yeah, and I was texting with some people about this yesterday.
Are they going to be practicing there for a couple days?
So the way it was framed to me, I heard that, and they did not do that for the London game. They went out after the Thursday practice in 2018. They got to London, and there you have jet lag. It's a shorter flight, London, but there's the time difference is much more significant, right? But they went after Thursday's practice, and then they practiced in. It wasn't quite in London. It was outside London. On Friday, Saturday was an off day. They played Sunday. I would think for a Friday game, if they use that travel schedule, then they would practice in Philly on Monday and Tuesday. They would go to Brazil after practice on Tuesday. You practice in Brazil on Wednesday. You're off Thursday. Practice Friday. You play the game Friday. Now, it is true, sometimes they do like to have promotional stuff before the game. There's ways around that without the current players. You have Eagles alumni. You have Brent Selleck going out there.
That'll get the people pumped.
but that's typically you got
nobody revs up a crowd quite like Brent Selleck.
I just point that out because I remember Brent Selleck in London for that. So
actually, he does a very good job when he has his stuff on. He's got very vociferous first down point, but
yeah.
I don't know that he's going to bring the juice to the people of Sao Paulo, Antonio.
So the game's in Sao Paulo, we should say, the Corinthians Arena, which was the host of the first World Cup game in 2014, and then it was also a venue in the Olympics.
You gonna bring your vuvuzela?
My vuvu, I don't know how to play.
That's actually not from Brazil.
I do recall that World Cup. I was watching it quite a bit. The great thing about that World Cup is there was no time difference, so it was during your hours. I'm curious when they go out. I don't think unless the league wants them out early, they would totally disrupt their schedule. Although for a week 1 game, perhaps you do have a little flexibility to get out there earlier. We'll see. Now, as far as the opponent. This is what we know. We know it won't be – we obviously know the 9 home teams. We don't have to read them off here. But we know it won't be Jacksonville or Carolina because Jacksonville and Carolina already have international games. Presumably, the league won't send them the 2 international games. We're assuming it's not going to be the NFC East, okay? So we know the NFC East teams. So then that would leave Pittsburgh, Green Bay, Cleveland, Atlanta. I would guess, if I had to guess, I would think it's going to be Atlanta. And
really, why?
For a few reasons. First off, I would imagine that the Eagles would want to protect the Pittsburgh and the Green Bay game. Okay. Atlanta is one of 9 U.S. cities that has a nonstop flight to Sao Paulo. It's the closest geographically of all those places.
So then it's like a home game for them. Then why do they get the advantage?
No, it's not a matter of advantage, but there is. Now it's not.
They're not flying commercial.
No, it's not a huge Brazilian population in Atlanta, but it is one of it's in the top 10 in Brazilian populations in the United States.
Okay. You've done some research here.
Yeah, maybe I could see potentially Green Bay. I would think the Eagles would want to protect that Green Bay game. I could be wrong. I could see it being Cleveland or Atlanta, but I'm going to go with Atlanta.
Okay. If it's Cleveland, I hope we get Michael Dunn on the beach.
Yeah,
let's get a little swimsuit calendar with Michael Dunn in Brazil.
I'm frankly hoping Michael Dunn gets a starting job somewhere. So maybe it's not. Maybe it's not in Cleveland. Maybe it's somewhere else.
Maybe Tennessee.
Yeah.
Byron Callahan.
That'd be great.
Maybe Philadelphia. Now we're talking.
At right guard?
Yeah.
Okay. Over Steen.
Yeah.
Okay.
He's a better player.
Or, there you go. I like that. Look at that. Signed Michael Dunn. So your thoughts on the game in Brazil?
I mean, I think it's an exciting thing. I hope we get to go.
Who do you think the opponent? Yeah, I hope we get to go too.
Yeah.
That'd be great. What would you? Now you're going to Brazil this summer.
I am. 10th anniversary trip.
That's awesome.
Doing a little Brazil and Argentina.
What made you pick Sao Paulo and Argentina?
Well, we're not going to Sao Paulo. We're going to Rio.
Oh, you're going to Rio de Janeiro. Okay.
But we've never been to South America before.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. And Buenos Aires?
Correct.
Okay. Nice. So what made you settle on that? You said you never
Well, I
been...
wouldn't say we settled.
I don't mean settle. I mean
I said
we've
never been to South America before. We wanted to go somewhere
But
we've
there's a
never
handful of players, Monte Picchu? Is that right?
No.
Okay.
I believe you're conflating Montevideo and Machu Picchu.
Okay. Machu Picchu. Sorry. You... Machu Picchu. So you could go there. Okay.
We could, yeah.
Okay, so I'm asking, what made you pick Brazil? You could play along with this a little bit more.
I don't know, like a city,
day.
like a beach. Like I don't know. That's just where we landed.
That's awesome. I was just trying to get a little more
We're very
color
excited,
here.
yeah.
That's great. Okay, so you can go to Brazil twice within a few weeks.
We'll see.
We'll see what happens.
Yeah. All right. Anything else?
So, yes, the Eagles officially announced Kellen Moore as their offensive coordinator yesterday. Took some time for that to become official.
How do you feel about the new graphic treatment that they've done with Vic Fangio and Kellen Moore, where it's like offensive coordinator, offensive coordinator, offensive coordinator, offensive coordinator, offensive coordinator?
I don't have strong thoughts on that. I don't like the. This is like a journalist problem. It's not even a problem. It's like a journalist peccadillo.
Yeah.
They started doing this in recent years, which instead of tweeting out the team statement,
yeah,
they put
a link to it.
Yeah, well, They just put it in the graphic, so you can't copy and paste
it.
You can't copy and
is
paste.
tough.
Yeah, so you got to type it
tough
all
life. Yeah.
That's not really a tough life. There's a report out, I believe, from Dan Graziano at ESPN that the Eagles are bringing in Christian Parker from the Broncos coaching staff. I believe he's a South Jersey native.
It was broken on Twitter by his older brother.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah.
Nice. Okay, good. Jersey native. And he was on Vic Fangio's staff, and it's a role with the defensive backs. We'll see what it is. I also want to give a little mea culpa for there were two listeners who brought this up. We were talking about the Eagles cornerback situation yesterday, and we did not mention Isaiah Rodgers.
Yeah, that's true.
And I think that's a worthwhile discussion. I do think Isaiah Rodgers is going to be part of this mix. He needs to be formally reinstated by the NFL. But
that's what you could ask Roger about.
Yeah, you're right. But I think as Bo and I really get into this roster in these next few weeks, next few months, we will have extended Isaiah Rodgers conversations.
All right, we got to wrap this bad boy up because there's somebody else coming up from ALLCITY here. So let's close this bad boy out. The PHLY Eagles podcast presented by Factor Meal Kits. Head to factormeals.com/Eagles50 and use code Eagles50 to get 50% off. Thank you to Adam Hogue. Thank you to Todd Davis. Thank you to Connor Orr for spending time with us on Radio Row. We are back tomorrow, 9 a.m. Vegas time, 12 noon Eastern time, with some more fun from Las Vegas. We appreciate it. And remember, if you are in Vegas, you can come hang with us tomorrow night at Circa at the Overhang Bar from 6 to 8. 2 free drinks if you RSVP. So come and join us and hang out. Thanks everybody for watching and listening to the show today. We will talk to you tomorrow. And as always, we love you.
We all silly like the mayor.